Episode 18, Unification Party, Unification Headquarters, co-host Adrian Blizzard. Everyone's
Howdy.
here and accounted for. Excellent. What are we talking about tonight, Adrian?
Well, there's a lot of goings on internationally and stuff. I was also thinking it would probably be maybe a good time to kind of like hone our message since we are the Unification Party, and we believe it would only be beneficial for America and Canada to unite in some facet or form, whether it's economic, military, or more.
I think I agree we should talk about that, but if we have new listeners just joining us right now, they're going to want to get to the meat and potatoes. And then if they are really interested, they can stay till the end. And this is where we should talk about that, perhaps like party business. We keep till the end of the meeting.
Well, I think that obviously the news of the week, call me crazy, but it's got to go to India and Pakistan, like I mentioned on the other episode. I think I jovially said India and Pakistan are about to go to war, and then later that night there was missile attacks, or the next day. Now it looks like the cooler heads are prevailing on that front. There's been a couple stories I've heard. I'm sure you've heard about the India and Pakistan, like Pakistan and India fighting this week.
Pakistan came over, killed some Indians. The Indians fired some missiles. Pakistanis fired some artillery back. Then it's escalated to some area combat, apparently, and
yeah,
that's all. I guess that's why I know the facts. That's about it. I don't have like the general larger context.
there's hope that cooler heads will prevail, and I also saw today that regarding Ukraine, I saw Zelensky saying like he's looking for a ceasefire, like a long one, and then followed by there's another article that said Trump is like adamant about it like about a Ukrainian ceasefire as well. He's gonna ask the Chinese to lend a hand in these peace talks. So like that, I mean, obviously it's the fluff on the top of the latte, but like I mean, at the end of the day, it's still like diplomacy. Like it's nice to see like, hey, it doesn't have to all be turf slinging and handbag burning. So I would hope that with all this peace talk in Ukraine, Northrop Guntram and like Lockheed Martin, Boeing aside, maybe we can get those guys to like focus on like space. Like guys, build spaceships or something. We're space people now. No more fighting over here. This is a landing pad Earth. We're done with the wars here. We got to go explore now. Put your money into that.
Well, it seems like that will never be the case. Well, maybe it will. I mean, there is a theory. I don't know if you ever heard this, but I heard one of the main reasons that we had the Crusades, that the West was our whole Western culture at that time was based on like to get honor and rank and position in society, you needed to more or less fight in warrior class and grow up in that system and educate in that system. And then eventually, like all the people were like, all we're doing is fighting each other. And we also at the same time have this system where we need to graduate people's rank, class, whatever, upward. Upward mobility was obtained through military prowess and service. So they, instead of fighting each other, they joined together in larger sort of kingdoms and shipped off all their youngsters, and they needed them somewhere for them to go. So they could still maintain their traditions, but not have nonstop, constant fighting amongst themselves. So
now
maybe that's what I'm saying. Maybe you're correct. Like the Earth, Pakistan will all just chill if we could just fight and show our excellence against somebody out there.
Yeah, exactly. Or you could even dangle the carrot, like, don't you guys want to find the minerals first? But yeah, no, I mean, obviously we're dreaming with that, but like hopefully, I brought all that up just to say, like, hopefully cooler heads will prevail when it comes to India and Pakistan, and maybe we can like resolve whatever immediate tension is there and like calm things down.
This is old news. They've been nuclear power since the 60s, and you've seen them do their march they march back and forth.
Yeah, it's entertaining.
Have you seen that? The pageant?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really good.
Goose stepping with really elaborate headdresses, intimidating. But this is, I don't know, this is saber rattling. I don't feel like we're on the verge of World War III. This seems like old news to me.
Yeah, but I
Pakistan,
don't.
India. How
Agreed,
has it
but it's
escalated? How has it escalated beyond what hasn't been, this every 5 years, 7 years, 6 years?
well, you can make that same case for the Israel-Palestine thing, except apparently
It's
it's like
it's a
really
lot
escalated.
different now because they pretty
Yeah,
much moved everybody out of Gaza. That would
yeah,
be
yeah.
one
Really, I
one
said it really
major
escalated. I said
example.
it really
Yeah,
escalated. I
yeah,
was very
different.
clear.
Way different than that's what I was saying. If you were telling me to say that Pakistan has mobilized an army and has taken 300 square kilometers of India, I'd be like, well, that's interesting. But
Yeah. On a good note, um, there was another protest at Columbia University this week, and approach was completely different. So I mean, I know it's not Canada, but it's still a nice turn of direction. So basically, all these activists recently, I think it was today or yesterday, went into the library in Columbia and barricaded themselves, and then like 100 police stormed the building, and they've locked all the activists in there and only let them out if they had student ID, and like they arrested everybody else. And it was like they filled up like a whole police bus, like a school bus, full of like basically they're saying like, oh, like some of these people just couldn't find their student ID. It was like, no, no, no. So it was like nice to see like they're taking a different approach to like these.
so no more Chaz Chop where you can just occupy a downtown. Now there are going to be consequences to pulling these types of things, it seems.
Yeah, which is a turn in the right direction. Back to
Which, but
sanity.
but we'll be hearing on the news tomorrow to be like the fascism of Trump, like who's silencing free speech at university campuses and using punitive measures to silence free discourse and blah blah blah.
They're all, Trump could cure cancer, and they're going to talk about how cancer was doing such a great thing to keep more trees around. I found this today. I wanted to show you and everybody. This is basically a graph that our government in Canada uses on post-secondary and government institutions. It's the hierarchy graph of privilege. And I kind of wanted to go over this with you. Can you see the graph well on
Can
your?
you make it bigger, a bit bigger?
It's
I had
bigger
it
on.
bigger when it first came
Mine's-
on.
It looks like it's half the screen here. Is it not half the screen on yours? What are you rocking
No,
with
make
there?
it even bigger. It's like a quarter of my screen. I can't see anything, but that's a color wheel.
Oh,
But
well, that's unfortunate. I have no idea how to make it bigger. I'm sure it's big for our viewers because I think I see
yeah,
their
yeah.
screen.
So just read out, just to be clear when you're pointing and on it, read what it says so I understand as if I can't see it.
The middle of the wheel, basically, if you're in the middle of this wheel, you are the ultimate privilege in certain categories. There's a second class of like kind of not so great, not so bad. And then further on the furthest outside of the wheel in the category, that's basically the least privileged.
So
Now
why
we'll
don't you
just
take me? Why don't you take me through this? Take me through
well,
this. Me personally.
okay, so we'll start at the top and we'll just work our way down normally. So citizenship is the top one. And in the middle of the citizenship, it says Canadian citizen. So if you're a Canadian citizen, you're the most privileged. Outside in the second ring is permanent resident, so PR. And then the least privileged people in Canada are temporary residents. So I would actually wholeheartedly agree with that. That's very reasonable. That's fair. Um, I don't think there's anything outlandish about that. Just pertaining to like actual privilege and power. Like I know I work with a lot of different workers who are new to the country and they're temporary residents, and a lot of them have got their PR since I've worked with them, and obviously it's a very momentous thing for them. So I can imagine that is a little bit more privilege and whatnot. But some of them are like that. I would say very reasonable.
Okay, let's do the next one.
Some of them are a little more outlandish, so just be warned. So the second one is indigenous peoples. So the most privileged are colonized settlers. The least in the middle, it would be the indigenous peoples connected to their communities. So I guess indigenous peoples who know their community and stay there and live there, I guess. And then the least is indigenous peoples without access to their communities. So
Okay, so if they're on a reserve and you're thriving with your community, you're better off than
number two.
the
Yeah.
person who's obviously living in the fringes alone
Right.
in the streets of Toronto or something
And
with
the vast
no band support. Okay, I got
correct.
it.
Every European past third generation is just killing it, according to this chart here.
Yeah, yeah.
So now the
Privileged.
third category is skin color.
Okay.
Now white is right in the middle for skin color. Different
Okay.
shades is the second section here. Different shades. So I guess that's
Okay.
like a mocha. I guess you could go yellow. There's different shades. And then
Yeah.
the least privileged shade is dark.
Okay.
So if you're a dark indigenous person who doesn't talk to your parents, you're not doing that great so far, according to this
Okay.
wheel.
Okay.
Now the fourth category is gender.
Okay.
Cis men are in the middle. Now this one has a fourth category. So the second one would be cisgender women. The third one is trans man. And the most least privileged is trans woman or non-binary. So that one's interesting. I guess this one I find interesting, and not so much with 1 and 2, but 3 and 4 in the sense that like, so somewhere in here, trans men are more privileged than trans women. I wonder why that would be.
Well, trans men probably don't get beat up.
Yeah, true, true. No, I was exactly thinking that, like situations they'd be in.
Yeah, like how many times have you seen like a butchy girl, like, and she's trying to pass? I'm not saying she's trying to pass, but I don't know. I'm not an expert on these things, but in my customer
Your point.
service role, I've seen some women before. The last thing you'd want to do is beat them up, right?
No, you're right.
So they probably, maybe somebody says mean things to them or laughs at them or misgenders them unintentionally, sorry. And then but there's legitimately trans women would get hassled and beat.
Well, even to your point that straight, like just men, are usually more violent than women biologically, and I would assume that trans women probably like men more on average, and trans men probably like women more on average. And in those two situations, I could see the trans woman obviously having to deal with a man, having more just statistical likelihood of physical violence, like extreme. So that would make, anyways.
Let's move
The
along. Next category.
next category is sex. So male is in the middle, female is number 2, and intersex is number 3.
Okay, so sorry, what was the one before that? That was gender.
Gender. Now we're on sex.
Okay, so now we're on to sex. Okay. Go on, next.
Sexuality.
Wow.
Heterosexuals in the middle.
Yeah.
Gay men. This one caught my interest. Gay men are number 2. And then
Okay.
lesbian, bisexual, pansexual, asexual, or asexual.
Asexual, yes,
I
sir.
found this one interesting too. Maybe, why do you think gay men would be privileged over the rest of the LGBT?
Because this whole structure is they're men, right? So already they're better off.
By that nature, by that
just by nature, they're being men.
Right here, according to the one right before it, male is worse than female. So you're right. By their own, that's just simple math to them. This one here is persons with disabilities. So right in the middle we have without disability. Reasonable. Number 2 is person with a temporary disability. I guess that'd be like a sprained arm or wrist or something. And then number 3 is visible and non-visible disability. Okay.
That doesn't make sense.
That's simple
next
math.
One.
Yep.
What's the next one?
Neurodiversity. No, right in the middle you have neurotypical. And number 2 is some neurodivergence. And number 3 is significant neurodivergence. Jay, I don't know what that means. What do you?
Cuckoo bananas. You nuts.
Oh, so sanity.
It's a sanity meter.
Okay. So the next one. Well, I don't know. See, the next one is mental health.
No, but neurodivergent means, like, I think that's what we would call. I don't know if there was a technical definition of like neurodivergent. I don't know. You have like a biological malfunction is my guess, as opposed to, I think that's what I can look it up. You keep talking. Go through the next one. I'll look up the actual definition, neurodivergent here.
I look forward to hearing
Complexity.
what you have to say. Mental
Yeah,
health.
let's get to the bottom of it.
The most privileged mental health. This looks like simple math. The most privileged mental health is stable. Number 2 is mostly stable. And number 3 is vulnerable. That's very reasonable. Language. Bilingual in both official languages. So this is another 4-banger. And that's fair. If you speak both French and English, or even 2 different languages, you're better off. Then fluent in one official language is number 2. Number 3 is learned English or French. And number 4 is non-English monolingual. Anyways, formal education. So post-secondary is
No,
most.
sorry, we'll just sort of jump back, bring everybody up. So
Neurodivergent.
neurodivergent was originally designed to refer to autism, but it seems to imply quickly here that it has to do if your brain functions differently or your behavior differs significantly from what is considered typical or standard in society. Apparently, that has broadened to include a lot more things: ADHD and autism, dyslexia, Tourette's syndrome, and whatnot. But more or less, your brain is cognitively functioning differently than what would be considered typical. Normal is not the right word, but typical in standard society.
Well, I will say
mental health would be things like depression and whatnot, I suppose.
Looking at this, if you're a straight white European ancestry man, you better be an autistic depressed guy, or you're not getting a job for the government by the looks of this wheel.
You're already not getting the job. You know what? Like, this may be news to a lot of people and whatnot, but I remember this as early as like 1988, 89. Seeing, blatant, I mean, not as blatant as I've seen it recently, but blatant, like, don't bother being interested in this there, white dude. Move along, essentially. So this is as old as Pakistan and India's beef. But I'm loving this wheel.
The last 3 are lame. So formal education, post-secondary, number 2 high school, number 3 elementary. Housing, so you have owns properties, number 1, sheltered or renting, number 2, homeless, number 3. Again, simple math, that's fair. And then wealth, rich, middle class, or poor. So obviously a couple of them were kind of interesting. I actually think you opened my eyes up on neurodivergent. Like, I probably kind of just wrote that off as like gobbledygook, but it's like, oh, okay, you're just putting more labels on things and less of a negative one with that over mental health, where mental health is more basically just depression, but it's too depressing to write that, so they're not going to. But yeah, like,
so what's the point? Where did you find this wheel, and what's the purpose of this wheel?
Well, the purpose of this wheel is what I saw. I found this wheel from a Rebel News report I watched about. It was put out by an academic at a university in Canada who had to take this training in order to get on this board, to stay on this board that he was an associate member of. And right. This was like one of the tools that the people were talking about. Like, this is what the government of Canada uses, basically. Because I know I did an interview with the government of Canada, applied not too long ago for a federal position, and at the end of the whole process, it did ask me, like, do I have to share any of my identity politics I cared to share with it would be advantageous to my application process. Now, little did they know I'm a straight white man, so it would not have been with a fairly level. Like, it would not have helped me to get the job. But you could tell that
property owner. Did you go to university?
I dropped out of college, but that might be good enough for them, right?
Tier two educational loser.
Yeah,
basically, in the education wheel. The wheel spoke.
I saw that today, and exactly, it's like you said, it's one of those things that, like, you always kind of knew was there, but to actually see it written down like that and be like, yeah, this is exactly you what you thought was going on. Like, this is the wheel they're using for their I guess they're fighting.
Yeah, but I will say, again, from as early as 88, 89, I remember I started applying for jobs, or, I remember being a student, like at that time where you apply for a job because there's contracts and government work in this park or something. And back then it was less about visible minorities, but it was quite big on disabilities and women. But the point is, it was directly telling you in clear language that we're not that interested in you applying, Mr. Rowe. And I kind of paid attention to that. What is that now? 1990, where this is, what is that, 30 some years ago. I paid attention to that and then decided that, well, all of politics, all of academia, and all of corporate America is kind of a closed door. I'm not saying that begrudgingly.
No,
Oh
coming
man,
from like a
I
lower socioeconomic background, like you didn't have a last name or like a parents with a political
yeah,
connection.
yeah, and I mean, and nor did I want to put in the intense effort that it would take to bust into
Yeah, yeah.
those like to be the top 10%. I accepted my fate as it's just reality. Again, I'm not, nor am I crying sour grapes. I'm just saying that them's the facts. I was like, well, okay, uh, just like a guy with three fingers missing on his right hand may not be in for a life of masseussing, and that was his passion and dream. It ain't happening, and a lot of those things, I just was like, well, that's I'm not willing to do what it takes to crack those things, and they're basically saying, don't bother. So I was like, okay.
Well, on a, on a different note, but similar note to what we talk about a lot, there's been a couple goings on with our friends south of the border. We had a meeting with our prime minister this week. I think we did over our last video. Did you? What was your takeaway from the Carney Trump meeting? Do you want to go first, or do you want?
No, yeah, I'll what's my takeaway? I mean, a collection of the clips that I saw, it showed that they were very cordial, very um, almost friendly. There was a relaxed air in Trump sitting beside Carney. Carney looked like he was a little bit more on his best behavior. I don't know. Like I'm trying to look past what all the headlines say, like, oh, Carney humiliated, Trump something. But I'm trying to add something new to the conversation. There was, I don't want to say like, ooh, they're best buds from the WEF and they've been planning this all along, kind of buddy buddy relationship. But, and I also know that they've done, I don't know if they've directly done business, but they've obviously traveled in the same circles. And I think they both have said they've met each other before. And I think they know each other or have dealt directly or at the very least indirectly with each other. And Carney's, for spouting such vitriol before the big meeting to like glad handing
Puppy
and
dog.
yeah, and well, I'm not going to say that. I mean, it's easy to see that if you want to see it, but Carney's also a polite person. Like he's not going to start like F you Trump and elbows up and like throwing haymakers if that's what people were expecting. And look at everybody who's watching. I hate Carney as much as anybody, I suppose. I don't hate Carney. I don't know him. I hate what he represents. Um, but I didn't see necessarily that Carney was humiliated. I would say that Trump's playing his card of disregarding America's need for what Canada has to offer. I mean, I saw that as funny. I'm sure a lot of Canadians saw that as dismissive and not funny. But in the context of negotiation, if that's what the lens now that people want to look at Trump through, I mean, it's brilliant negotiation to be sitting there right at this conciliatory meeting after you've said, I don't even know what he's coming up here for. I hear he wants to do a deal, whatever. I'm a busy guy. I got this going on. Well, I guess I would be impolite not to have him in for tea and a tea biscuit. So he can come on over and what does he want? I don't know. And then he comes in and he's like, well, it's nice to see you, buddy. How you been? And good for you on your great victory. But I don't need any of your stuff. And I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, I would say, as someone who doesn't like Mark Carney, for the same reasons as you, which is just like, if according to his book, I don't think our values align. That being said, I was actually impressed with how he handled himself, like how he handled himself. Now he couldn't get an inch out of Trump, and I was actually happy with how he conducted himself relative to like how it could have gone, and how gutty Trump was being. Like he shit on Trudeau, which is fair. He did mention that Trudeau gave him the 51st state once he said like Canada doesn't exist
He
without them.
said that. That's what he said that number of times as a talking point.
Yeah, fair enough, but he said it again, and he also was very rude about Chrystia Freeland because I remember during those trunk talks, like the trade talks back in the day, I felt the Canadian side was being a little too head up its own ass. And I'm obviously not a fan of the Trudeau government, so obviously I saw what I wanted to see. But I mean, whatever. And Christy, those are led by Chrystia Freeland, and he did say he didn't like her and he doesn't want to deal with her, yada yada. And I don't know if Trump knows it, but that's Mark Carney is Chrystia Freeland's child godfather. So like, there's obviously some sort of a mild close relationship there. I know not always the guard parents don't always stay in the children's life, but usually that indicates a closeness. And then even at the end, like as a Canadian who likes Trump, I was worried for Canada at the end of the meeting just because Trump was very clear with like, nope, nothing can happen. That's because I said nothing can happen. Sorry, not today. And at the end, you could see Carney. He wasn't being like desperate Dan, like Trudeau with the handshake to nobody, but
Yeah.
like Trump was like the angry kid at a birthday party where he was just like refusing to look at Carney for like the last half of that interview.
See,
And
but it all depends. Like, are you scared? It depends what you believe about Trump. Like, I don't believe Trump is like the devil, so I think it's funny. If you have been programmed to believe that Trump is the devil,
oh,
then
for sure.
he's sitting there. That's the scariest thing you've ever heard. So, I mean, I guess it's your perspective. Like, as a Canadian who would not want his country to be militarily invaded or whatever, I mean, my mind, I can't help but even laugh because to me, that's not even in the cards. It's so far from the reality that it's comical. I don't know. I just don't take it seriously. It's comical to me. I think Trump's funny. The fact that he says, yeah, will Trump gut our auto industry to help his own country? Absolutely. But I think he's been clear about that. I mean, we've been saying that for a long time now on this show, and I know we're just a couple of guys. So I'm sure there's other people who are saying it, but most people just want to believe he's a chaos agent and he doesn't even know what he's doing. But signing deals with India, signing deals with the UK. Eventually, people are going to get tired of the chaos narrative. I mean, that's why there's almost no even interesting news right now. I don't even think the left knows what to criticize. It's other than the same old thing of I'm.
Well,
Go ahead. You're
that
gonna.
just reminded me. Schumer, did you see Chuck Schumer this week coming out to attack Trump? He comes out at this press conference. I believe he's the head of the Senate Democrats, and he's just like, "There's a poll out. Trump's like doing horribly in it, and like just thought everybody should know, like summarize." And the first reporter's question is like, "Yeah, there's a poll out about you, and like you're doing the worst ever, Chuck. What do you guys say about that poll?" And I can't. It's like, polls coming out. He's like,
Yeah,
"Boy,
yeah,
you were just saying, yeah,
exactly.
exactly. They got nothing on him, and he's doing that shotgun effect." I mean, I will say though, like Trump's not forcing anybody's hand. But he is in his own way, like the government should, like just setting up the guidelines and letting companies pay within that. And we're already draining more automakers to the south, more production and so forth. So
It seems like despite the news media's best efforts to not paint Trump as successful in any regard, and I'm even trying to look critically, it seems like there's a lot of stories coming out very recently that seem to be pointing to like Trump's doing pretty good when it comes to making deals. It seems
mhm.
to be, I mean, it seems to be front page news. I mean, second page news is it seems to be the way Trump is losing. And again, I don't even know if it's true because I can't be bothered to read it. The only way that Trump seems to be losing is because he's always constantly in court. So you'll hear a headline like Trump loses in court again, but you don't want to read that it was like the third circuit court judge in Idaho, something, 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 and there's so many of them that you can't keep track. So I move along. So I don't know, but he seems to be winning in the economic front. The
Well, I
stock
would say
market's rage backed.
the Trump economic stuff, it's kind of like baking a cake. And, he was getting the eggs together. He was getting the sugar together. He was getting all the ingredients together. He was telling us what it was going to be like at the end. And we were all like, I don't know about that, man. And like when it's in the oven for like 10 minutes, that's when people are like, well, it's not cake. What are you talking about? There's no cake there. It's like, yeah.
Soup.
You got to give it time. Nobody jump. We got to let it cook. And I mean, Trump seems to have, like, I don't know, be all over. He has more than enough time to push this new narrative about the Persian Gulf. Have you heard him talking about he's going to call it the Arabian Gulf? And because basically, I don't know if you know this, but like people from Iran are Persians by heritage, right? So
Yes.
Persians and Arabs are different cultures, and the Iranian people are obviously very proud of their Persian heritage, relatively. So it's kind of like a fuck you to Iran, part of my French. But but it's also actually a big thing because like the Arabs who aren't the Persians are like, we love this idea. So like all the other kind of, so he's not alone. It's not like Trump's just sticking a stick in a bee's nest. He's kind of like helping, one side. Yeah, just so that's like, and that's where Trump is good because it's distracting. It's just like the Fugazi. It's like, let's not worry. But it's also like, he did get the Houthis to lay down their arms. So obviously,
It's kind of a macho move, though. Oh yeah, we'll get back to Houthis just for a second, but it's kind of a macho move because it's like it's like an alpha dog pissing on a hydrant, right? Like when you go down and rename the Gulf of America now, like the Gulf of Mexico is it is literally now and it's only a matter of time worldwide adopted, but now in America it's the Gulf of America, and he did that. And now he's going to go change the Gulf of Arabia, or attempting to. I mean,
Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Arabia.
Persian Gulf, Gulf of Arabia, take Greenland. Like, he's making some pretty big moves, man.
But the thing is, like, I know people's immediate reaction are like, "Whoa, change bad," but like these changes, like the Gulf ones are funny, right? The the America one, you're like, okay, you know what? Sure, why not? Have fun with it. But like, it's not like he's like China invading Taiwan or China invading Hong Kong. He's kind of being like, hey, everyone's going to get a pay raise, like, and a better job opportunities. Like, let's dance. Like, why not? This is a no-brainer. Like, on freedom, we got the best charter of rights out of any country in the world. So you're going to have the Constitution of the United States, if you so choose, defending you. It's like, in my mind, as a political person who's been interested in politics since he was young, it's a no-brainer. Now, I know America's not perfect, but like no country is. But they're on paper they have the closest ability to be.
Well, that probably leads in. That probably leads in perfectly to what we should have is our politics. Yeah.
Politics.
So you wanted to bring up a point of saying what do we want to accomplish? What do we want to Go ahead. What was your?
Well, okay. Our goal is that, right? Now, here's the thing.
What's our goal? That's when you state to me in clear terms.
Well, unifying North America, and like whether that you seem to be more a fan of economic and military, whereas I am for that, but also for me the liberty side is big. Like I love the Declaration of Independence and the American Constitution more or less. Like again, not a perfect document, but like just compared to other documents in the world, it's the most powerful for the individual. So, and again, so if that's our goal, I think that like basically, I think our best bet is like to somehow get Trump to give us refugee status because it's something our government does. Like, and I heard like if they pass these, there's apparently a law that's on hold that like once Parliament opens up, though you're probably going to pass it on hate speech. But it's like also it's like even if somebody thinks you might say hate speech, that's enough where the judge could like step in and like confine you to your house.
Well, until some of that happens, you're not going to be able to claim your refugee. Have you even gone through the process of figuring out what it takes to claim refugee status in the United States?
Trump to notice you and tweet about it. That's what I know. Okay, so that's the conversation we're having right now. Like as far as like, because I think if that say extreme legislation gets passed, and like you see right, I don't know if you've seen any of the talk about like JD Vance and Marco Rubio talking about Europe and like how they're being like they're not like aligning with American values due to like their authoritarian tactics and like clamping down on free speech over there, Germany in particular and France and so forth. So, I mean, that could just be kabuki theater, and for all I know, maybe it is. But if there's an ounce of truth that the current administration of the United States cares about freedom of speech for its partners, um, then there's a case to be made, I think.
Well, there's a global battle going on.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, I don't know exactly who's on which side of this or that, but there's I mean, we can take some guesses and whatnot, but it's hard to know really the inner workings and the wheels, and they're all a wheel without a wheel, and just like we saw. Yeah, but there's clearly, and there may even be three factions in the world going at it or something. Who knows? But it's all going on behind the scenes. So the question is, do we personally, we as a country, we as a party, do we want to hitch our wagon to the horse running towards a utopian? Let's assume, let's give that side the benefit of the doubt. And we'll say towards a utopian green, like windmills and happy children running through dandelion field future. Or do we want the, pull yourselves up by the bootstrap, live a life you want to live, capitalism, the things that seems to have made the life better for everybody in the past. It has a proven track record, not a track record of, some might argue, not so great stuff.
Utter failure and murder, yeah.
Yeah, well, but this time it's different. This time it'll be different.
I would do a better job. Those other guys got it wrong.
Well, they have the technology.
Exactly. Potatoes for everybody.
And then so that's the question. So presently it appears that Trump is not, or he's at least shaking up the global order. Why I'm for that is not necessarily because I think Trump is right. I just think the longer that the world is in semi sort of political chaos is the greatest likelihood that I personally get left alone. So I kind of have selfish motives for that. Like if society, if things go too well and there's too much cohesion, then they can use the state to monitor every aspect of our lives. But when they're spending time, resources, and energies fighting they have to fight a media war, then they have to fight a kinetic war in Ukraine, and then they have to fight an online surveillance war, and then they have to win the hearts and minds of people. They just don't have the time and resources to monitor to the fringes of society in any sort of meaningful way. So I'm kind of, I don't know what question you asked or.
Well, I know, and I'm just realized I was like, we're talking about the foundation of the party here regarding like I was saying how to get like.
Oh, I understand we're talking about. I don't know how how that relates to unification, but I would say,
because like we said before, the biggest part, like I was talking about how would it work for unification, And I think the clearest and best way for Trump to go about it would be directly. Let's target the Canadians who like value free speech. Like if you're impacted by these laws and like you feel you've been impacted, come talk to an American consulate or make your case or whatever, and like the government of the United States will look over and see if you've been, if your rights have been infringed on by your government, because like the Democrats do it all the time to get more Democrat voters or whatever they think they're getting, whatever they're
Sure.
doing over there, right? So like if they truly value free speech, and then like we've said before, where like you let in those 10,000 or whatever 100,000 Canadians, and they're like walking pamphlets for like the Unified, where they're like, hey, it's great down here, like like whatever setup this is what I like about it, this is what I don't
For
like about it,
sure.
sure, but
For
what I like
sure.
about it.
But do you want to go to the States? If
Mm.
you could go to the States, if you could easily go to the States, you would pack up what you're doing here and go to the States.
My issue with myself and my current situation is just
So the answer is no.
I have elderly
So the
parents,
answer
so
so the
like
answer is no.
this second
So the answer is
I
no.
would go to the States because I live so close to it. I wouldn't have to be that far from my parents. So I could go to the States and still be near my parents, but I wouldn't stay in that state very long.
Well, no, of course not.
Right? After they passed, I would be going further south for sure. And maybe it would be nice to have two places in the States. Not saying I have that kind of money, but I'm also willing to live pretty scantily. So if I would be cool with the tent trailer in both spots, it would, because like the one thing that gets me about American South is the weather, like the extreme weather when those tornadoes and hurricanes come in. You're just kind of like, how do you
Sure.
people live with this?
No, so back to the politics. The thing is, I mean, to me, it would make the most sense. The biggest economy in the world, the biggest military in the world, a really good track record. Maybe America's on a decline, but everybody in the world's having problems. And I
That's
would,
our yeah.
yeah, and I mean, again, we're geographically close, we're culturally close. Even if, like, I'm just saying, even hypothetically, if China was the better choice, let's just say somebody could bring out some sort of graph and chart where China or the other was the better way to go for eventual being taken over by and governed. Again, I'm creating a
I got
crazy
I believe it. I'm not
hypothetical.
staring at you. I'm taking it.
Just the cultural part of it just doesn't work. Like there's no scenario where I'm going to be thrilled in the future that, my orders are coming from Beijing, even if they're better orders that are coming from Washington. Like I just can't imagine a world where that I would love that, even if it is like again, even if it's better for me. So we're so culturally intertwined with the US of A, and we're also infrastructurally tied. And I mean, we're already a single unit. And Trump's making this
Exactly.
obviously apparent.
Well, and
So
I was thinking
I would almost say it's inevitable.
to your case, like I mentioned earlier when I laid out your desire for military and economic unity. I was just thinking as you started talking there, I was like, we pretty much already are, right? Like one unit, like military wise, like we don't. I guarantee you, there's nothing we go off and do that like the Americans don't know we're doing. You know what I mean?
I
Even if
think
we
I
don't tell
said
them, they're well
before
aware.
the best maneuver for us that I think we should do is there should be, I think, what is there, four branches of the American military. There would be a fifth branch of the American military called the Canadian, there's the Army, Navy, Air Force, yeah, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and
Five,
then
the Space Force, by the by.
yeah, space. Okay, so six. The sixth division would be like the art, like we would specialize in
In Arctic.
the Arctic. Like we would realize, okay, US of A, you've got the Pacific, you've got the Atlantic covered. Canada's sole like dedicated force, like, and how good would we be compared to the rest of the world if Canada dedicated its entire military to just specializing in Arctic defense? Like who?
But if I may, Arctic defense and subtropic peacekeeping, because a couple of
Sure.
factors, like we do,
Send the
we,
Americans to do the peacekeeping. Keep. If you want to
probably
do that, you go join. Because we Canadians, you can go join the Marines. You can go join the thing. Like we've integrated our militaries. So if you want to go do your peacekeeping stuff, but the
I get what
the
you're.
sixth
You are right.
branch, the
You are right.
sixth branch is we're Arctic, and that's
We're,
it. And we
we're
take pride, yeah,
gonna keep
and
them warm.
we take pride in that, and we crush it in that regard.
Well, and I would hazard a guess that, like, for years that probably was the case, where it was like, guys, just run those radio towers and make sure nobody's coming, for the love of God.
Well,
And
I
just
my
call them what
understanding,
they are.
one of the reasons we spend so much money on like these native on like people say like, well, why would I don't know if you ever heard about the big controversy back in the day was I think it was called Davis Inlet where they took a bunch of native like Inuit and then they built them these like more or less like subdivision style homes of the 80s or 90s. I can't remember exactly when it was, but contemporary home styles, and they just didn't work in the Arctic. And they spent at that time, I mean, again, nobody could even believe it. They spent $1 million to build a house in the Arctic when
And it didn't work?
well, it did work initially, but it cost $1 million. At the same house at that time where I was, you probably buy for 100,000. So
Yeah.
that's why I remember it. It was it was a boondoggle. And then fast forward 5 years, the place has fallen apart. It's in shambles. The basements have heaved and the permafrost and blah 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 and graffiti and smashed windows and destruction. So I'm saying all this. The point being is, back then the big talk was like, why do we even bother? We should relocate these people. That we have a history of relocating people. We relocated um, whole towns in Newfoundland when they decided like we're not running a fair there. Those debates are still going on. They're moving people. They're paying to move people. But I came to understand is it's a small price for us to pay to guarantee sovereignty of the North by us having people inhabit it. If you can imagine just north of let's say Wawa, all the way up to the Arctic, there was nobody and nothing. It's much easier for people to impinge and creep in and move down where there's nobody. But it quickly becomes if all of a sudden you've got a Russian guy strolling into town, and people are going to be like, hey, whoa, what's the deal here, right? So the point we paid is all this money is to keep in the past is to keep these communities alive. This is one of the reasons and not the definitive reason.
For
But
sure. Well,
yeah,
it should be the only reason the federal government does it, and it makes complete sense. But, and I would bet, if I may, the biggest issues for these northern communities is that, like, the adaptation of living in a modern society, where it's like, yeah, it's really expensive to live a life with all the creature comforts of modern life up in the Arctic. Like, yeah, like it
it's like
costs
when it's a million problems out there, there's like literally no solution to it. So but
six
that's
dollars
so
discussion.
back to the unification party is my goal, and the goal of the unification party is to formally unite Canada, not at the end of a handshake, not at the end of a bayonet. And if we proactively go to the big brother to the south with a comprehensive good plan, and we say that that's what
I,
we want.
I thought of another approach in addition to that would be possibly uh, rewriting a new constitution. Like, now that's a big task. Obviously, that's Herculean. You know what I mean? Like, it's taken legal scholars 300 years to
Like
craft what's going
getting
on
a
now.
constitutional amendment in the United States or writing a new
No, like,
constitution for Canada.
Trump wants the pomp and circumstance. Like, the North American Constitution, like signed by Donald Trump and like all the governors and premiers. Like,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, like a,
get him
a
signed.
new
2.0.
yeah constitution. I mean, if we're into having a party with like unattainable goals, that would be a good one to have to
We're already there,
push.
Bucko. We're already there. Like, we're trying to, but I think it would be, it would also be a good way because, like I've always said, a big reason for me wanting to join you on this quest of the unification party is I feel that like it is inherently better for Canadians to be like citizens than like serfs, and I think it would just be a big part of the blowback for most Canadians is the whatever legal benefits they think they have. I think a big one, honest to God, like most Canadians wouldn't be opposed to this, is just like healthcare. Like they're like, if you're 60 or 50, like I've paid into this Canadian healthcare my whole life. Like I'm
Yeah,
not
but
really.
we've mentioned this before. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't that this is what I'm saying.
That's why if
This
it
is
was written in
people
the
get
Constitution, like if our
yeah.
Constitution, you were able to agree, like take the Canadian Charter rights, take the American Constitution, and then like kind of like obviously we're having unattainable dreams here, but like hodgepodge together, like basically.
Yeah, but we don't even need to do that. It's an unnecessary step. It's we don't need to change our what we've got. We just need to add an addendum, and the addendum to both would be like we're a sovereign nation doing our sovereign thing, and we pay X amount of our money to run the military in this particular way, and then we have trade and this and that, but we still pay our federal tax to Ottawa, and the guy in Maine pays his federal tax the to the
DC.
states, yeah, DC, and if the guy from Maine moves up to, Nova Scotia, he pays his federal taxes and that's where he
I,
works. They
I
go to they
like where
go
you're.
to Ottawa.
It just, I think, but I also think that could be solved with like Trump just saying like green cards for any Canadians without a criminal record. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because that's really what it is. Like, it would be nice to have that. Like I've mentioned before, like even just like buying something off the internet from like San Diego, or even just like over the border, like in Maine there, it would be the same. You know what I mean? Like, it's like there shouldn't be that prohibitive duty on everything. Like just
Well,
little
no,
things
like,
that make it
that's what
easier
I'm
for the
that
little guy.
border would disappear. Like
Or if it's
under
like a
my
tornado, like what happens? A forest fire in California? Well, now a whole bunch of newfies can friggin' head out and start building houses. You know what I mean? Like get down there, get on her, boys. Like or whatever. Just like stuff like that. It would make it easier to like, cause like again, like we are pretty much sister states relatively. But I did hear Vance talk earlier regarding, I think it might have been in regards to Ukraine, where he said he's like America's looking for partners and not vassals. So like we don't want to be like what you're kind of purporting is almost like it sounded a little bit like a vassalage there until the end when you kind of.
are you listening to what I'm saying? Are
No, no,
you
no, I know.
listening to what I'm saying?
There was shades of it. There were shades, and then I finished. I heard you finish.
Zero shades of it.
Like, you're just looking for, which I agree. Like, why can't like if our companies can all work together, like GM and Ford or whatever, like why can't the common people?
Yeah, and I mean like I said, we get rid of the border. And I mean I'm sure there's lots of people can throw a but this, but that, but any but that can be thrown up, there can be a process to deal with it. Like, I just make one up, for example, you'd say, like, oh, well, because Canada has the free, in quotes, nothing's free, I understand that, but free healthcare. Oh, well, they'll get every, parent from Georgia with their cancer laden kid moving up to Alberta and trying to get their kid into sick kids hospital. But, maybe it doesn't work that way. Maybe the system is, yeah, you can move to Alberta from the States. I mean, you can move to Alberta from anywhere in Canada at any time, but maybe if you move to Alberta from the States, your employer would have to pay 6 months of private health care, or be accepted into a private health, you know what I mean? Like, you could create caveats or a tiered system where you just can't have busloads of people rolling into the country. Like, it's like any but can be organized. You could say, like, we share an economy, we share this. Like, can you just go from the Netherlands you know and then roll over to Romania and the EU and just start collecting welfare in another country? Like, I don't know if it works that way, but it's crazy if it is.
Hey, you did at one
It
point at
shouldn't
least.
have to.
I think that's where I think the big that one I think is the big chestnut. But I think there's a case to be made that like there is a need for change in both Canada and America's healthcare systems, anyways. You know what I mean? And maybe some sort of hybridization for both systems maybe would be a blessing in disguise. You know what I mean? Maybe it's something whereas like every major city's university is the free clinic. You know what I mean, or something like that. So it's like, yeah, it's not great, But like the kids aren't idiots either. You know what I mean? They got real doctors there. You know, they keep an eye
No
on you.
one's, no
But if you
Canadian is going to
private
agree.
insurance, like you can pay for it, because I think if private insurance became more of an option, you know, like anything, there could be plans. You know what I mean? Where you're like, oh, this plan covers like, you know, bones, like breaks and screws, but it doesn't cover cancer or whatever, right? You know, I mean, yeah, I'm not saying it's perfect, but like that, I think would be out of everything, military, economic, which is a whole other bag of worms. I think the healthcare one would be a tough one, but I also think it's the one that, like, if you were to give it serious thought, academics from both sides of the aisle, like American, Canadian, socialized, private, you know, a fair, I think there would be a way. But I also just think there, of course, there is, but that's not really what the answer is because it's like there's a lot of big fish in the pond who like certain things a certain way. And you know, that's usually what things come down to. You know what I mean? It's not like you're just going to take $1 trillion insurance industry and like make it disappear overnight. You're like, oh no, you know what I mean?
No, but I mean, the future for both of our countries is staggering debt, aging population, blah, blah, blah. So
Maybe it needs to be
a lot of the decisions might be made for us. So it won't be that, this is what we want. This is what we're lucky to get. So if you're out there and you're not looking after yourself physically, you're going to be in for a rough retirement, is what my recommendation would be. Take care of yourself because you're going to be messed up. So let's close this up by figuring out, okay, so we're still into unifying North America,
you
working
know, as many
towards that
possible. Yeah.
as many facets, but maintaining, the stuff that we like that makes Canada Canada, and not giving up sovereignty, but being a partner of some sort.
Ed, I don't know if you're agreeing with me, but if the government passes like thought crime hate speech laws, like where you can get charged for just someone
Well,
assumes
see, and that will be we'll also
let's
keep an eye on that type of stuff as well.
deflect. You know,
We'll have to
that
be that
yeah.
we'll have to be a voice in the wilderness calling attention to the
Well, that's just wild, right? And that's a big one for me because I like saying things just because I don't want people to tell me I can't say things. Like that's it. I'm a big free speech guy, but I
well,
also think like
here we
you could
are,
get
we're saying whatever we want.
but exactly. No, exactly. But I also think exactly like we're not saying anything too outlandish, and if it is outlandish, I think we're willing to have a discussion on it. You know what I mean? We don't claim to know everything.
We barely know anything.
Tell us in the comment sections what you know. Thanks for
Yeah, tell
watching.
us in the comment sections what you want to know. And if you'd like to join the Unification Party, just leave a message in the comments. Or if you want to come on the show and tell us why we're doing such a great job or terrible job, let us know in the comments.
Just stuff,
Um,
good stuff. Nice comments.
let's. All right. Well, good night, everybody.
Bye bye.
Wow!